Okay, I want to show the charts for Box Seat Baseball Under the Hood version. As I've talked about in the previous videos, I use the flip cards for some of the things that you can use the charts for. I don't want to come across like I'm anti-chart in any way. They are a great way to play the game and they work for a lot of people. So I want to give them their due. So I'll show all the charts you get with the game. And this is going to be kind of the dime tour. I'll come back in other videos and actually really show you how to use the charts for various aspects of the game, but I want to at least show you where to find things. So when you get the game, you get a double-sided chart here, and then you get a folded, this one has four pages to it. So I'm going to show you this single page one first, and then get to the other one. So on this side of the chart, you have all the different hit results. And again, these are the things I use the flip card for, but you've got a chart for hits, all the different hits with the bases empty, and you can see fielder, really it's just fielder locations there. And then you've got a chart for runners on first, and you can see the notation similar to the flip cards. Like look at runner on first. This is going to be a double two. If you have a 1 or a 2 on the red die, it's hit to left field down the line, and the runner on first has a coach's decision. So you can see the different notations through there. And then you get to runners in scoring position. And, doubles, you're going to have the runner on second automatically score. So this is just for the runner on first. And then when you start getting over to singles, you've got notations for the runners on first and runners on second. And so, if you look at the one, single to left, angling away, runner on second is a coach's decision. Unless there are 2 outs, he scores, he gets home. And then runner on first with 0 or 1 out he goes to second, and you do an outfield check if there are 2 outs, and the fielder might be able to hold it to a single, or it might turn into a double. So there's a lot of different results on this chart, and then this small column over on the far right is for infield singles. Those are generally just one base advances in all cases. Okay, let's flip it over. This chart you're going to use a lot. This is for range plays, and one of my next videos is going to be about range plays. The main chart you're going to use is over here. You're going to look at the original green and red die roll, and there will be different situations where the fielder's range, which is from 1 to 4, 1 being the best, is going to automatically tell you whether he makes the play or not. There's a few where you see MP and DNMP, where any fielder will make the play or does not make the play. And so that's kind of one of the cool things about the game is sometimes a 4-rated fielder is going to make a play, and sometimes a 1-rated fielder is not. They're not perfect, and they're not that awful that they can't make a play once in a while. And then you have some with the results. There's sort of 2 results, like you'll see on number 70, MP, and then BP number 4. So you have the option there of just using the range of the fielder. In this case, you would make the play. Or you could use the ballpark to play a role in whether he makes the play or not. The ballpark cards have different results for singles, doubles, and triples. And in this case, BP number 4 would mean you would use the number 4 line for that particular type of hit. And that would determine whether the play is made or not. And there's also a way to use both. You can use the ballpark and the range of the fielder, which is what I do. And again, I'll do a video on that in particular to show you. Okay, and then there's different situations where if the range play is made or does not get made, what does it turn into? So this longer chart here tells you what the play result is when it's a hit, check, and the fielder actually makes the play and turns it into an out. And over here, you have the opposite. When it's a range play that could normally be an out, but the fielder doesn't make the play and turns it into a hit. So there's some charts for that. I mentioned here, you have the ability to use the fielder range and the ballpark together. And if the fielder's a 1, it'll adjust up closer to being an out, and vice versa. When there are 4, it drops down 2 lines and it's more likely to be a hit. And then you have some range checks for singles that are hit on the ground. You'll check to see whether it's hit to left, center, or right, and you'll check the power of the batter, which determines if he's more likely to pull the ball or not. And then that's the appropriate fielder you're going to check on the range play. Rather than using the outfielder's range, you're going to use an infielder's range. So that's on this chart. So that's what you have here. Okay, now we're looking at the bifold chart here. Starting up here, I talked about infield singles in the last video. And there's a notation next to each with a letter of the alphabet, and this is going to tell you what letter to use in those cases. And in most, runners advance only one base, but there's some that have additional asterisks next to them, like letter D has a double asterisk, which means that runners advance two bases, except for C- base runners. So there's a little key down at the bottom for that. I showed you this chart before. This is the low average batter hit check chart, which is where if you have a batter who is a very poor hitter, there's an additional roll to see if he actually does get a hit. And you're going to test against the pitcher. And the good pitchers are going to be able to block a lot of the hits against a weak hitting batter. I think I used Charlie Huff to demonstrate that. There's some charts here to use in hit and run situations. There's no specific hit and run results on the cards. You will call for a hit and run, and then if it's one of these results, you'll use this chart to determine what happens in those cases. Outfield checks, I talked about this. This is a feature of the game where a hit could start out as a single and the fielder could essentially misplay it into a double, or vice versa. A ball could be headed for the gap, but a good fielder can get over and cut it off and hold the batter to a single. And then there's different base advance situations here. Singles, doubles, there's a place where you check the arm of the fielder, and then some charts for batter or runners going first to third on a single, where you'll roll the red die and see if he makes it to third. Okay, I'm gonna open this up here. I've talked about the various ground balls advance, and this is a chart that I don't use because I use the flip cards. Really, this whole page pretty much for me goes away because of the flip cards, but you'll see the notations here for what to do if it's a slow grounder, a hard grounder, base advance situations with the infield in, which those are different, and I do actually have to use those. Double play checks on hard grounders and regular grounders, where you use the pivot rating sometimes to determine whether it's a double play. If the infield's in, some hard grounders and lineouts are going to get through the infield that normally wouldn't, so you have an additional check there. And then over here are all your different checks for the ground balls, pop-ups, foul pops, and lineouts. Again, you can see situation with bases empty, runner on first, runners in scoring position, and then double play checks on lineouts. And again, most of this stuff is on the flip cards if you use those. Over here are the fly balls, and you have all the different fly ball situations: deep fly, long fly, normal fly, and short fly. And the potential base advances, you can see no base advances with the bases empty, of course. Very few with runners on first. Only under the deep flies do you see runners on first potentially tagging up. But then when you get down to runners in scoring position, you have a lot of situations to look at where runners might advance automatically, or whether you have a coach's decision to do that. And the chart for when you do that is right here. And you also have situations where runners behind the lead runner might move up, depending on their base running ratings. Here's your deep fly check for home runs. I showed this one in video number 6, where you roll a red die, and depending on the total home run rating, taking into account the pitcher and the ballpark, and if you use the wind, you have that to get a number, and then you roll the red, and that determines whether it's a home run or a fly out. The left side is all of your decisions for advancing on the bases on hits. So coach's decision: single, going second to home. If it's hit to right or left, if it's hit to center, the runner has a better chance of making it because the throw's longer. And then doubles: first to home with 0 or 1 out, doubles first to home with 2 outs, where there's, again, a greater chance. And then trailing base runners, you can coach your base runners normally, aggressively, or conservatively, and they have a chance of potentially moving up. So that's over here. And then these charts are really, really important. You'll use these. These are error checks. I'll show how to use, how to do an error check. But there's one for hits, there's one for fly balls, there's one for ground balls, and then there's one for pop-ups, which you also will use for lineouts. And you can see on the ground ball chart, I'm not going to go into this too deeply, but if you look at the very top row in each case, you see for hits, if their error rating is 20, which is the best, 66 parentheses 0. Fly balls, you don't even see a 20. It starts at 18. A 20 doesn't make an error on a fly ball, or a 19 doesn't make an error. 66 parentheses 0. Ground balls, 55 parentheses 7, and then pop-ups 66 parentheses 1. What this is basically telling you is it's more likely there's an error on a ground ball. You're going to use the original 2-dice roll, and you're going to look at the fielder's error rating and then against this 2-dice roll with the white and the black. And you know, even a 20 is going to make some errors on ground balls if the white and black die are above 55 and then the green above 7. So you've got more chances because there are more errors on ground balls. So that's what this page is, and more to come on the errors. It's an important part of the game. Final page here has a lot of stuff on it. You have what are called rare plays here, and there are also wild plays that you'll get a separate chart for, and those are what I would call the true rare plays. But these are ground balls to the pitcher, plays involving the catcher, some foul outs to the outfielders. These are not on the other charts, so they're more rare, and these come into play after a wild pitch check. And then how do you handle the different fielder situations for ground balls to the pitcher. You've got a bunch of charts for stolen bases up here. You have a chart to check for a jump. You have a pickoff chart. You have 2 different stolen base charts for does the runner make it safely. One for modern seasons where there are more stolen bases, and one for classic seasons where it was a little harder. Then you've got a steal error check chart, which could go against the pitcher or the catcher. Pitcher could make an error throwing a pickoff. The catcher could make an error throwing the runner out. And then some notations there of how you use the ratings of the pitcher and the catcher and the runner to determine whether it's a successful stolen base. Here's your squeeze play. Here's your sacrifice bunt chart. Those are relatively simple to use. Again, I'll demonstrate those. You've got a chart to check for wild pitches and pass balls. You've got a chart for special situation outs. I talked about where certain times a batter does poorly with runners in scoring position and it automatically turns a hit into an out. You'll use this chart for that. You've got the fatigue pitcher. There's 2 different types of pitcher fatigue you can use in this game. Your choice. This shows you how that affects a pitcher. And essentially what happens is the pitcher becomes less effective at blocking hits and walks when he's tired. And you need a third die check against to determine whether he actually does block the hit or walk. And then you've got the scoring position hit chart. This is kind of the converse of this chart, where batters do really well with runners in scoring position and they get extra hits. So you've got one page here, you've got a page here, you've got another page here, and then you've got a 4th page right here. I've neglected to show you this column here. This is if you want to do weather in the game. You don't have to. It's kind of a neat feature. It affects both pitcher stamina and home runs. The temperature determines pitcher stamina, and you can see here if it's 90 degrees or more, the pitcher's fatigue level drops. So he can't go as long. But if it's a nice night between 56 and 77 or a nice day, he actually picks up a little bit of extra fatigue points, so he can go longer. And then you have this check on velocity and direction of wind that determines how it could affect home runs. And the wind could be blowing in or out. And if it's blowing in, these numbers under deep fly effect become negative numbers. So if the wind's blowing in, say 10 to 14 miles an hour from a particular field, it takes 2 off of the home run number that you need to be able to hit, and it makes it harder to hit a home run. So there's a process for how that works. Again, fun feature, not mandatory at all, just something you can do to, maybe add a little bit of realism. If you're doing a full season replay, maybe you want to, have a July game be different from an April or a September game, and you want to, challenge the pitchers on their fatigue and challenge the hitters a little bit more. So you've got that here. So that's this chart, and then I mentioned we've got range plays, and then you've got hit checks here. So those are the different charts that come with the game. These can be memorized. These can be used, very effectively. And once in a while, I will play a game with these charts just to kind of keep them fresh in my mind. They're really thoughtfully done. And like I said, I use the flip cards, but nothing wrong with using these. Okay. All right, so I went through flip cards and I went through charts, and now I'm going to go back in the next set of videos to various plays that you'll see in the game. Range checks, error checks, stolen bases, a few other different things. I was asked, will I do a playthrough? I definitely will, at least a few innings, but I'm trying to do these videos like chapters in a book where you can watch them individually if there's a thing you have a question about, and you just look at that particular video instead of having to scroll through several innings of a game and hope that I cover something that you want me to cover. So that's my plan for these. I really appreciate everybody watching, and I appreciate the comments that I've received so far. Keep them coming. Let me know how I can help. Thanks.